Hey y'all, Ramdino here. Well, the Appalachian Trail this week is wide open. We got all kind of tons of information to share with you right now about thru hikers and news from the trail. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the 2020 folks, we still got a few hikers out there. Mayo and Nat Geo, they are in the Smokies and they may have to walk out to Gatlinburg to resupply. So that's one thing about the Smokies. There's only one place to get out, and that's Newfound Gap, and it's almost right in the middle of the Smokies. And if the road up there to Newfound Gap is closed due to ice or snow, or even in the summer you may have a wind event that causes trees to fall down, they'll shut that road down too. Of course, they can deal with that quicker than they can with snow and ice. So they do plow the road after a big snow event, but they can't do anything about ice. So if that road is closed, it is a 15-mile walk down to Gatlinburg. So your choices are stay in the restroom up there, like some folks have already done this year, like Boxcar Willie. He had to stay in the restroom, and he talked about that in one of his videos. So he spent the night there. Mayo and Nat Geo, my understanding is they stayed at a shelter right before Newfound Gap, which I believe they're Sobos. So I believe that is ice water shelter. So in any case, they stayed there, and they were going to try to get in today. If the road was closed, then they were going to have to make the walk because they had to resupply. And watching the video from Boxcar Willie, it looks like he made that 15-mile hike down to Gatlinburg as well. So keep that in mind when you're coming through there on your thru hike, or even on a section hike, that you may want to take a little extra with you because you may have to spend a night there in the restroom. And then Crash Bash and Whole Foods, they are somewhere around the Franklin area, so it won't be too much longer, and they are going to be heading on into Georgia, and that will be, of course, their last state. So that's exciting to see them getting ready to finish there. And they've been taking their time, having a good old time. And just like last one to Katahdin wins on a Sobo trip, last one to Springer wins. So what's going on with the 2020 folks? Well, we are wide open with what's going on with 2021. So we got Blowtorch. He started this week. He got on the trail, and he and another hiker were helping out a hiker that was unprepared for the trip. And this particular hiker came with a dog. And not only was this hiker not prepared as far as the hiker, what this hiker had as far as equipment wise, but also hiking with a dog. So in the hiker's words, and this hiker posted on another site somewhere, that when you're hiking with a dog, you are hiking the dog's hike. And that is, I've heard that more than one time. Of course, there's a lot of people that successfully hike with a dog, and that's great if you want to do that. But but one of the things you really need to do is find out if that dog is one that would make a good companion on a hike. So this particular dog, the hiker said that it would alert all night, throughout the night, inside the tent to whatever smells or sounds were going on outside. And if the dog's not sleeping in the tent, it's moving around, it's constantly alerting, then its owner inside the tent is going to be up all night. And as most of y'all know, on any type of whether you're a thru hiker or section hiker, good night's sleep makes all the difference in the world. And if you can't sleep, then it's just, you're in for a miserable experience. So that's what happened to this hiker, and Blowtorch got the hiker off the mountain and into a shuttle, and the hiker is going to go back home and regroup and maybe get back on later. But there was some gear problems as well. They didn't have the proper gear for winter like they should have, and that makes all the difference in the world too. Scooter, he started this past week, and he has made it to Dix Creek Gap, and he is coming into North Carolina real soon. Rodney, who is on our list, but he does not have a social media account, he contacted me, and he's made it to Fontana as well. Apple Pie and Greenleaf are crazy folks that are Sobo from Katahdin already, and they have made it over Mount Adams. The Suttons, they're out of Georgia this week and through Franklin and on their way to the Knock. Subman and Subs, Big Cypress, and Moonbeam, they are holed up there at the Knock, waiting on this bad weather to get through, and then they're going to be continuing on to Fontana. Quicksand, he's in the Franklin area, and his foot is doing great. Earlier in his hike, just a few videos ago, he had indicated he had some foot pain, actually had to go to the doctor, but thankfully things have worked out, and he's slowed down enough to let that foot heal, which I know is hard to do because he is a go-getter. But in any case, that foot, he says the pain is gone. So that's awesome. And he's in Franklin area, and he'll be heading on to the Knock here in no time. Happy he is past Fontana, and he's in the Smokies. And Boxcar Willie's in the Smokies, and he is alive and well. So one of his videos, about 3 videos ago, he had a run-in with what he called a person that was exhibiting psychopathic verbiage and just acting really crazy at a shelter, and talking about harming others, talking about harming himself. And so, it was very reminiscent of what happened in 2019 with the murder that we had. This person even had a dog as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video. But in any case, Boxcar Willie's in the Smokies, and he is doing well. He did make it to Newfound Gap, and just like I indicated before about the road being closed, he had to spend the night in the restroom there. So that was kind of interesting. If you want to know what that's like, spend the night in the restroom, go look at one of his videos that he did there. And my understanding is that if the road was closed the next day, he was going to have to take that 15-mile hike down into Gatlinburg to resupply. According to the Visitor Center at Amicalola Falls State Park, we've had 39 people as of yesterday. We've had 39 people that have signed the book, including 4 people with dogs. So that is tracking with how many folks we've actually got registered, or close to it with what we've got registered on the ATC website, which is kind of unusual. Typically, those two do not marry up near as much as they have. I think we've had 31 folks through Sunday, which is today, January, the last day of January. And so those are pretty close to the same amount, which is really unusual. Usually they're further apart there. Now, can't really explain that, because I know a lot of people are not even registering either down in Amicalola Falls State Park, or they're not registering online either. So kind of curious about that. But I know several people have gotten off the trail already that registered down in the book at Amicalola Falls State Park, and one of those was with a dog. So they said they'd already had 4 people come through with a dog. And then, so some folks got off, or at least that one hiker got off, like I said, because of the dog, and then others have gotten off because of equipment failures, or just actually they did not plan like they should have, and so they had some equipment issues. So we've got a slew of people that are starting next week. This is our biggest week yet. We've got Crusoe, who you may recall that name. He has been helping Quicksand, and Quicksand's mentioned him several times. He's been helping him with Shuttles, and he also hiked in 2020. So he is getting out there with Night Train. So Night Train's also starting this week with him. We also got Connor Mahoney starting, Tramp Stamp, Scott Morris, Not So Much, Mr. Freeze, Lufa, and Lufa started her through hike in 2020, and all these folks that hiked in 2020, obviously they got off because of COVID, and she made it to Stokoa Gap near Fontana, and then so she got off. So we also got Braveheart, Farrell, and an oldie but a goodie. You reckon if you've been tracking the AT for the past 2 years prior to this year, then you'll recognize this name, and that's Underdog. So Underdog, he completed the trail in 2019 on a through hike, and that was awesome. And Underdog is one that really does a lot of videos out there, really has a lot of interaction, and so I'm excited to see him on the trail again, and would recommend if you need somebody to watch, certainly go and check out these other folks. But he's like Quicksand, he posts a lot, and so it'll be exciting to see what Underdog's got to say. He occasionally even does some live posts out there. So right now on that hiker support list, we have somewhere around 270 hikers. So if you're a thru hiker and you want to be on that list, then if you'll just go down below, you'll see a link to the form where you can go and fill that form out, and you can be a part of that. It'll automatically populate you to that list. If you're not comfortable doing that, just send me your information. I'll be glad to fill that out for you. And if you do need to make some changes to that, to what you've put in and your information there, then you'll have to contact me and I'll change it for you. I have made it so that nobody can go in and make changes to it, just so some ne'er-do-well don't go in there and mess the whole thing up. So keep that in mind. just send me if you got any kind of changes out there. And then if you are a thru hiker, I would greatly appreciate it if you would send me your updates. I don't ever tell people exactly where you are. I kind of give a general area. Sometimes I'm actually behind a day or so. I know you folks out there, a lot of you folks don't tell people where you are exactly. So between the two of us, you'll be safe. And that's the main thing, is keeping folks out there safe. So please send me your updates rather than me having to go and hunt, peck, and find you, because that really helps me out when I put together each week this update. So what kind of registrations we got? Well, last week on NOBO we had 2,170, and this week we've got 2,296. Flip-floppers, we had 107 last week. This week we've got 109. And Subo, last week we had 89, and this week we've got 97. So the total we've got right now from last week was 2,366, and now is 2,502. So that's up 136 hikers who have registered through the ATC website. And again, that's tracking with up being 33%, a third more people registering than there was last year. The trail is maxed out, was maxed out last week, 25 days, and this week it's maxed out for 31 days. So I've had some people ask me about, what does that mean if it's maxed out? Does that mean I can't register, I can't hike? And up until this point, you have been able to register. You have been able to hike. I don't think anybody's going to change your hike, but the registration is another matter. So you are not now going to be able to register for a day to leave through the ATC website on a day that is maxed out. Now, I had never seen that before, and this represents a change. Corner, who's a thru hiker this year, he emailed me and told me that they would not let him register for the day that he wanted to leave. So obviously this represents a change, because what happens is when you go to that website, and I did this because I tried to register myself, when you go to that registration, it will not, you get an error message, and it will not let you register for the day that you put down if that day is already been maxed out. So obviously that has not been the case the whole time, because there are days on the trail where there's more than the maximum being 38, and there's even some days where there's over 40 people that are out there, into the mid 40s. Last year there was a couple times where we hit actually 60 people on the trail. So that is represents a change, and it's not documented anywhere on the ATC website why they changed that, but they have, and hopefully I'll be able to get some information. It's not going to change anything. I asked them for information so much they're probably going to cut me off one of these days. But in any case, I'll try to find that out for you. So when you go in there to register, you have to register for a starting point. Well, right now there are many days when the starting point is maxed out for either Amicalola Falls State Park or the southern terminus at Springer. So that is many days are like that. So you can't put down your registration for that. I did, however, go and look and notice that the registration to start your hike from the Springer Mountain parking lot has very few days. I don't know that there was any days maxed out when I first looked at it, and there's plenty of room there. So obviously if you're starting at Springer, that's where you're really starting your hike, because you can't drive a car to Springer Summit. You have to drive it to the Springer parking lot and then hike the mile or so up to the summit and then hike back down. So just keep that in mind. If you want to register and you feel like you want to register, then go ahead and you can do that, and you can register there until it fills up the Springer Mountain parking lot. Also, they are not allowing section hikers to register for a section hike in February, March, and April. Matter of fact, they can't register until April 19th. So obviously that's right in the middle of the bubble, and the ATC doesn't want you registering. They indicate that on their website, and you would kind of be nuts to register a section hike this time of year. People may not know any better, but now is not the time to be hiking in Georgia in March and April, and really even the end of February, just because there'll be so many thru hikers out there. The trail will be so crowded, there won't be places at shelters or even stealth sites for people in a lot of cases. But the ATC has shut that down from you being able to do that. So the changes they've made for section hikers shutting them down from registering, and then also the changes they've made not allowing people to register on max days kind of makes me think, okay, before it was for data collection. Well, if you're not collecting data, then you've actually got bad data. So what are they doing with that? I don't know why they made that change. I would be really curious to see why, but it's definitely not giving them the true picture that you think that they would want. Because hikers are going to hike anyway. If they can't register, they're going to get out on the trail. Thru Hiker is not going to put his thru hike off for a week. He may put it off for a day or so, but he's not going to. Most people are not going to put it off for a week. Now there are some that look at the trail and they go, "It's just too crowded. I'm not hiking this year," or because they're one, worried about COVID, or two, just they want some more solitude. So I have heard of some folks that are putting it off because of that, but by and large, most people are going to hike. So I want to talk a little bit about Boxcar Willie's incident he had at the Fontana Hilton. So he ran into this guy who he felt was a possible psychopath, certainly spouting psychopathic things about harming him, harming others, harming himself. Here's a picture of him, and his backpack had a lot of patches on it. Confirmed this with Boxcar Willie, and the dog was a very small dog, probably 20 pounds more or less, a blonde-haired tan dog, had a red and black vest on, and the vest had some type of writing on it. So these are the best pictures, and I'm going to make them big so that you can take a screenshot of them. Typically, I would not do this because people don't like to have their picture taken and put all over YouTube, and I usually would get somebody's permission even when I'm out on my hikes. Before I start videoing people or taking pictures with people in them, I always ask. But in this case, this guy could cause problems, and it is eerily similar to conditions to what happened in 2019. I know in 2019 that I posted James Jordan's picture on my video, and there was a lot of people that obviously saw that, but there were several people that contacted me and told me that they appreciated that because they ran into him at a shelter or ran into him somewhere, and they were able to avoid him because they had seen his picture on my video and they recognized him, and so they could avoid him. So I'm doing the same thing here. It's not really great pictures, the best that I got, but in any case, you just need to avoid this fella. So Boxcar had tried to report this incident to the authorities, and what occurred here is he called 911. And 911 gave him over to, after they took his story, then they gave him over to, I believe the local authorities would be the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department, again, every time he got switched over, he had to tell his story. So he went to the sheriff's department, had to tell his story. Then they put him over to the National Park Service, and he kept getting flipped back and forth between different agencies. So that particular shelter has a lot of jurisdictions around it. So there's a sheriff that would be local up there. The sheriff may pawn off his jurisdiction to the National Park Service, which overlooks the Appalachian Trail, or the National Forest Service, since the National Forest, that's in one of the national forests, or in this case, the TVA, or the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is actually under the umbrella of Homeland Security due to the dam being a location and the dam being a possible target for terrorism. So the TVA also owns the shelter down there, and there's bathrooms nearby there. That all of that is under their control. So that's why he got flipped around a lot. That's certainly not an excuse for that. Somebody should have showed up out there, and they did not. And just like we had the failing in 2019 that what possibly contributed to the death of Stronghold, then this occurred here where nobody showed up. I do know from my sources at the ATC that this incident has been, they are aware of it, and they have passed this on to the law enforcement agencies on up the trail. So hopefully nothing will happen to somebody other than there's another run-in, and somehow this guy will get caught and he will be taken in and at least gotten off the trail in some way, shape, or form. I've still got some more information to put out about this, about how the ATC and the different law enforcement agencies handle just such this. What happens when you make a report to the ATC, and the ATC has several methods of doing that, and I'll be putting out a video later to that effect. I have asked some information from the ATC, and I asked it late in the week, so they have not had time to get back to me. They're very thorough in their information, and they do their research through their different departments to make sure that they are giving me the correct information. So I want to give you the correct information, so I will put that out later on in the week. Main thing to remember is if you come across somebody in a shelter that your gut tells you something's wrong, or they get your hackles up, or you're just not comfortable, and especially if they start saying violent things, then you just need to hike on. Leave that shelter, and once you leave that shelter and get away from them, then you can call 911. A lot of times you don't have a signal, so you may not be able to call 911 until you get a signal. But in any case, leave the area and get on around people if you can. Certainly get on to the next shelter or somewhere else, even if you have to walk up the trail and then walk into the woods for 100 yards or more to camp, just so you're not right there on the trail in case that individual decides to follow you. That's what happened last year when the murder occurred. That the folks that were involved with that, they were injured or that were attacked, they did walk on up the trail. Unfortunately, the individual that attacked them followed them on up there eventually and found them. So if you're going to walk up the trail, get off the trail, and probably need to remain quiet and until you can get around some folks. But please remember, the biggest thing is survival, and just leave the area. Don't forget that we have a trail angel list of trail angels that are up and down the trail that are willing to help people for free, give them rides, to get them off during bad weather, to help them resupply if need to. Sometimes these folks, and particularly up north, there's a couple folks that are letting people stay at their houses, tent there, stay in the house for free. So go and check out that. We have a public and private list. If you're a trail angel and you want to be on that list, public or private, then please let me know. I'll be more than happy to put you on that list. I just need to know your name, your contact information, and the area that you service. Leave a comment below. Love to hear from you. Love to answer all your comments. Subscribe to this channel so that you'll get my notifications each week, and oftentimes during the week when I put out a video. And the main thing is, you go down below and you'll find a list link to a list to all the Thru hikers that we're tracking right now, and you can go and subscribe and sign up for their channels and give them the attaboys and the confidence they need, and just keep them going on throughout the whole course of their hike. Folks, thanks for watching this week. As always, appreciate you, and we'll see you out there.